What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here to break down the Xfinity Series DraftKings slate. This weekend we're at Texas Motor Speedway. It's a 1.5 mile track, cookie cutter track. A lot of tracks very similar to it. And we have Kyle Busch racing this week. So that always makes things interesting, makes lineup construction very, very hard and very difficult in some ways. Or if you want to fade him, you will get a ton of leverage on the field and you will be in a very good spot. We'll get into discussing that. I do think there's a lot to know about Kyle Busch here. I mean, I think he's the biggest topic on the slate. Is there good enough value to play with him? Do we need to play him? Is he worth it at the salary? We'll get into all of that. But before we do, make sure to hit that like button, thumbs up, leave a subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let me know how I'm doing. Turn on the notification bell. All those things really help me out. And if you want to get more of my content, you should subscribe to my Patreon, which I'll put in the link below. For only $10 a month, you get my spreadsheet cheat sheets for all three NASCAR series, Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks. I'll just scroll through the Xfinity Series spreadsheet here. There's way more stuff for the Cup series, more data for it, but the Truck series and Xfinity have a lot too. And along with that subscription, you'll get my weekly articles for all three races, and you'll get my GPP exposures, my tier rankings, and my cash core 4 along with being invited to my Discord channel. So all that is just $10 a month. If you are into more sports other than NASCAR, you should stick around as well because NBA is starting back up in like 2 weeks, and I couldn't be more excited. I mean, I like NASCAR, but man, NBA is my favorite. I'm so excited to get back into that, break down that for you, make content daily for you, and just watch basketball in general. I mean, it's just a great sport to watch. Getting right down to the playoffs soon. I know those first few weeks of games may not be anything special, but the playoffs will be great, and I'm very excited to get into that. If you want to follow me on social media, it is at DFS Nate Lane on Twitter and at Nate_Lane on Instagram. I am very active, especially on Twitter, talking about just sports in general, DraftKings, fantasy football, basically all of that. And if you want to come get into my content there, you can go for it. I will. If you have any questions for me, I will always be willing to answer them on Twitter for you. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. Let's get down into the breakdown. All right, so Texas Motor Speedway is an intermediate track, a large oval, and a cookie cutter track. So that's the category that Texas falls under, and it's a track where there's going to be someone who's going to lead probably the majority of the laps. You're probably going to need two. Well, see, that's the thing. In normal races, yeah, I'd say two Dominators builds is the way to go. But now you have Kyle Busch, so it makes it hard to put two Dominator builds in. But I do think there is some value down there that you could make a two Dominator lineup with. Kyle Busch, I mean, I guess I just got to go into him. He's $17,000 on DraftKings. I mean, that price is just insanely high. I mean, this is what we saw, earlier this year when he was racing Xfinity Truck Series. His salary jacked up. I mean, he's $16K on the Truck Series slate. I mean, but he starts 4th there. He starts 28th. So, like, I mean, he's going to finish in the top 5 as long as it doesn't wreck out. Like, that's guaranteed. And, I mean, it's Kyle Busch, so, I mean, he's definitely a favorite to win. I mean, he's my choice to win. He should be everybody's choice to win this race. The question is, does he get up and lead enough laps for him to really pay off? Last year in the truck race, or the Xfinity race at Texas, he won the race and led 33 laps. That will probably be enough for you to pay off the salary. It just depends how everyone else does. Like if Chase Briscoe especially leads a ton of laps and wins the race or finishes second, like more laps than Kyle Busch, it's probably gonna be tough for Kyle Busch to be in that winning lineup. But if Kyle Busch gets up to the front, which I expect him to be inside the top 10 within 15 laps, and then probably probably after stage 1, I expect him to probably lead the majority of the rest of the race. That's my opinion what's going to happen. But I mean, we have seen the Xfinity Series this year at Darlington. He didn't dominate. He actually lost that race. Same with Phoenix, he didn't dominate. But Charlotte, which is a cookie cutter, intermediate, and large oval, he led all the laps. He was in an optimal lineup, and you needed him to win the GPP. So I think that's more likely what Kyle Busch is going to do. If you look at all of his ranks, I mean, I'm not even just going to I don't even feel like saying the numbers. I'm just going to go to my little ranks thing over here, and he is first in literally every single stat. Every single one. Hasn't raced in the last 5 races, but every single stat, Kyle Busch ranks first. So, I mean, he's just so dominant in the Xfinity Series anyway, and this is just the tracks that really tend to fit to him. I mean, it's just he just looks like an absolute. It's just hard not to play him. I don't suggest getting cute and especially if you're playing 1 or 2 lineups, I don't suggest getting cute and fading Kyle Busch here. I suggest playing him. He has place differential upside and starting and lap wet upside, and I think there's enough value to play him. But I mean, there is reasoning to fade him, I guess. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, I wouldn't go like 100% Kyle Busch. I would definitely like try to fit in some other guys in here because I think some of these other guys have upside as well, and they're not nearly as expensive. So I think Kyle Busch is a great play. I wouldn't suggest fading him at all. I would suggest playing as much as you can of him. But if you're mass entering tournaments, then yeah, I could see reasons to play a little bit less of him. He's going to be very popular. He's going to probably be the highest owned driver on the slate. So yeah. And next we have Chase Briscoe at 11,300, starting 12th. I think Briscoe's okay. I mean, the Texas and this type of tracks haven't been Briscoe's like strong suit. I mean, as you can see, he's got the 11th best average finish at Texas, the 10th best at intermediates, the 12th best at large ovals, and the 14th best at cookie cutters. So like the numbers just don't suggest like he's been great here at these types of tracks. And at laps led, he has 0 laps led at Texas over the last 2 years and only 335 at intermediates. And compared to all the other top tier drivers, it's just not even on the same level. So I'm thinking Briscoe may not be the best play here. In the last 5 races, Chase Briscoe does have an average finish of 1.8. That's insane. He's just been on fire. I expect him to finish at least inside of top 5 anyway, just because he's been better this year. Basically every single track, he's been the best driver in the Xfinity Series all year. So I do expect him to be up front towards the end of the race, but I just don't think, like, especially when I'm looking at like the guy I'm about to talk to, who I just don't think Briscoe has as much lap led upside. And I say that like just about every race. Briscoe's always going to finish up inside top 5, but for the most part, he really hasn't been like a huge lap leader this year. I mean, if you look at the last 5 races, I mean, yeah, he's third most, but like that's still 263 for Cindric and 213 for Gragson, and 72 for Briscoe. Briscoe finishes up front, but the laps led thing is just not. That has not seemed to be like a thing that he's been doing all year. Austin Cindric starting third is the only. I mean, if this is the other dominator that I just really like, and it's going to be interesting to see how lineups work out. Because I do like Cindric a lot. I mean, if you can fit Kyle Busch and Cindric in a lineup, I think that's the way to go. And there's value down there, which I think it could happen, but I think it's going to be very hard to find. But yeah, Austin Cindric starting third. I mean, he's just been. I mean, he won both Kentucky races last week. He's been lights out the 1.5s this year. I mean, he's just led a ton of laps. He starts third. He has the 3rd best average finish at Texas, 5th best at intermediates, 5th best at large ovals, 6th best at cookie cutters. Average position about the same. Laps led, he has 461 laps led at the intermediate tracks. That is the 2nd most on the slate behind Kyle Busch. So let's just say out of all the Xfinity regulars, he is the best driver at these tracks, most likely to lead laps. He has the most laps led out of anybody at Texas over the last 2 years. In the last 5 races, he has led 263 laps, which is the most in the field. So I think Cindric looks great. Just the 1.5's been great. We saw him lead a ton in Atlanta, which is another cookie cutter track. We saw him. At Charlotte, he finished second to Kyle Busch. Didn't lead a ton of laps, I don't believe, but he was up there the whole race. But yeah, Cindric at these cookie cutter tracks has just been great. Cookie cutter 1.5, we saw him dominate Kentucky last week. Fastest car both races, won both races. So I think if you want to find a way to pair Kyle Busch and Cindric in lineups, we'll get down to the super cheap value later, but it's possible. I tried to build some lineups like that earlier, but it is very hard. If there was one guy, if like you're only making a few lineups, if you're like doing a 3 max and you want to make 2 with Kyle and 1 without Kyle, I would say Cindric's your guy. I think because Kyle Busch does start 28th, so like he's not going to lead all the beginning laps. Like Austin Cindric starts third, and the 2 guys in front of him, Burton and Annette. I mean, maybe they lead the first 2 laps or whatever, but I mean, I expect Cindric to get past them very fast. It's not like Kentucky where it's like a super hard track to pass at. So I expect Cindric to be up front very, very quickly, especially if his car's as fast as it's been at these 1.5s this year. Yeah, I mean, he could lead the whole. He should lead the whole first stage, to be honest, and I mean maybe even more. There's definitely reasons for that Cindric could be the guy that ruins Kyle Busch at 17,000. Even if Kyle Busch wins and leads laps, Cindric leads like 100 laps. I mean, shoot, he could be the guy. Next, we have Noah Gragson starting 9th, and yeah, Gragson's fine. Again, I do think Cindric and Kyle Busch will be the 2 highest owned priced up guys, which leaves Gragson at lower ownership, which we're not used to really seeing. He does start nice, so he's got some place differential upside. Only 1 race at Texas where he finished 13th, but at intermediates it's the 4th best average finish, the 6th best at large ovals, and the 5th best at cookie cutters. If you look at laps led, he has 378 laps led at the intermediate tracks, 166 at the large ovals. So yeah, he's been pretty good at these types of tracks. We saw him very fast at Kentucky last week, led a bunch of laps in the first race. He has 215 fast laps. That's always a good stat to look at. 6.5 average finish in the last 5 races. Average running position is 6, and 213 laps led in the last 5 races. So yeah, Gragson's been very good this year. I mean, him, Briscoe, and Cindric have pretty much been the class of the field this year, to be honest, in the Xfinity Series, and I don't really see that changing. Their cars have just been lightning fast, and He looks really good. I think he's going to come in a little bit lower ownership than Cindric. And honestly, if you want to like if you're making a bunch of lineups, I mean, a Cindric Gragson pairing may not be the worst idea in the world. They could both lead a ton of laps. I expect them both to be at least top 5 drivers by the end of this race. So yeah, I mean, Gragson looks fine. I don't think he has as clear of a path to leading a ton of laps as someone like Austin Cindric does, and I don't think he has as much upside. But Gragson probably is the second most upside behind Cindric out of this tier of drivers. Next, we have Ross Chastain, who I'm not as high on this week. 10,000 starting 8th place. I'd honestly just rather play Gragson for $400 more. 9th best average finish at Texas, 12th best at intermediates, 11th best at large ovals, 9th best at cookie cutters. He does have 416 laps led to intermediate tracks over the last 2 years, which is the second most, but I just don't. His car hasn't been as fast this year. He hasn't led a ton of laps this year. In the last 5 races, only 47 laps led. He has been finishing consistently, though, with an average finish of 3.6 in the last 5 and an average running position of 7.4. So I think Chastain's fine. He's going to be lower owned for sure. Like, I don't really expect a lot of these guys to be too highly owned just because Kyle Busch is here. And he could get up front and lead laps. He's shown it in the past. Just this year, the lap sled hasn't been as big of a thing for him. Next, we have Justin Allgaier, who is same thing for me. He only 11 laps led in the last 5 races and really hasn't been running so well this year. That still doesn't have a win. Just seems to always get into bad luck. And the cookie cutter tracks only has 46. That's fast laps. Only has 38 laps led over the last 2 years. So yeah, Allgaier, this type of track isn't really his style. Isn't really like his strong suit. He'll probably finish up front towards the front, but like he starts 4th. So like I just don't expect him to get past Cindric, to be honest, to lead the laps early. I mean, it could happen, but I really just doubt that's going to happen. He'll finish up front most likely, though. I mean, he does have good average finishes at all these tracks. It's just the lap sled haven't been a thing here for him, and I just don't really expect that to change. Next, we have Harrison Burton starting 7th. I did say Briscoe, Cindric, and Gragson in the class of the field, but, Harrison Burton's been great, too. He always finds a way to finish up front. He hasn't really been a lap leader this year, and that scares me. But I do think he always comes in a little bit under-owned than what he should be. He starts 7th today. 4th best average finish at Texas. 3rd best at intermediates, 3rd best at large ovals, and 3rd best at cookie cutters. So yeah, he's been very good at these types of tracks, and in the top 3 for average running position for all 3 types and Texas. So yeah, he's been very good here. 0 laps led at Texas though, 57 at the intermediates, only 55 at large ovals over the last 2 years. But that is in much less race than all these guys, because this is his first year in the Xfinity Series, where all these guys have been in it for at least another year. So yeah, he looks fine. I just don't think. It's just hard to want to play him with Kyle Busch being out here, and I'd rank him below Briscoe, Cindric, and Gragson if I'm being completely honest. Then I'd probably go Burton, but only 15 laps led in the last 5 races. I don't like that. He honestly hasn't been running as great as he did at the beginning of the year. Only an average finish of 15 in the last 5, although he did have some very bad luck in Kentucky in both races getting taken out. One of them he wrecked himself, and in the very end, and everyone Gragson took him out, and they had a fight. That was interesting. But he does have the average position at 8th in the last 5. So, he's still been running well. It just seems like he's been having some bad luck recently. So, yeah, I think Harrison Burton's good. It's just I just would not – I'd rather play some of these other guys than, like, Allgaier, Burton, and Chastain, and Brandon Jones, too. I don't really have a lot to talk about. Brandon Jones is, like, wrecked in, like, the last 4 races. So, he's had some bad luck. Wrecked on the first lap at Pocono and the first Kentucky race. Neither of them were his fault. His car caught on fire at Indy, and he wrecked himself in the second Kentucky race. So Brandon Jones, I know I'm not going to predict wrecks, but the guy's just had some bad luck, and he just doesn't have the upside to lead laps in my opinion. So I'm just going to steer away from Brandon Jones this week. Alex Labay, 8,900. He's just too expensive. I don't know why DraftKings keeps pricing him up. Look, he has the 21st best average finish at intermediates, the 21st best at large ovals, and the 21st best at cookie cutters. Like, that's just not worth 8,900, especially starting 16th. Like, why would anyone want to pay for that? And in the last 5 races, he's an average finish of 19.2, an average position of 21.6, and 0 laps led. So, like, I just don't see any reason for me to really want to go to Alex Labay. He's way too expensive. I don't know why DraftKings has him that expensive. Jeremy Clements starting 22nd at 8,700, I think is an interesting play. This is the tier of drivers where it's going to be hard to get to if you're playing Kyle Busch. Like, I don't see any way you're going to get any of these 8,000 drivers in unless you're really, really punting. But, he's okay. He has the 15th best average finish at Texas, 18th at intermediates, 17th at large ovals, and 20th cookie cutters. But Jeremy Clements overall has been a lot better this year than he has in the past. He has an average finish of 13.2 in the last 5, and an average position of 12.2. So, that's what you're expecting, like a 10th to 13th place finish from Clements. And at 8,700, when you have all these, potential dominators just a few spots ahead of him, I just don't really want to play him. Same thing with Riley Herbst. He's back up to like being priced up after a great run second both Kentucky races last week, and he starts fifth now. Like a few weeks, well, not a few weeks ago, like honestly a few months ago, when Riley Herbst was like in the 7Ks or the 6Ks and he was starting like fifth, it was like, okay, that could maybe be a good play if he could just hang around there and stay in that same position. But at 8,500, you don't want that, and Riley Herbst doesn't really have any upside to get up front anymore, and he just starts too high. So yeah, no one's playing Riley Herbst this week, and I'm not going to either. But next we have Anthony Alfredo at 8,300 starting 10th. I think Alfredo honestly has sneaky upside. I always say that every week because I think he does. He's in an RCR car. He's shown speed this year. He's been good at these tracks too. 6th best average finish at intermediates, 4th at large ovals, and 7th at cookie cutters. In his last 5 races, went too far. Average finish at 10.75 and average position at 12.5. So he hasn't been running fantastic, but there will be races where he gets up. I think he finished like second at Miami, second or third or something. So he has potential to be up there. It's just, again, I just find it really hard to get to any of these guys, and I don't love any of these guys either. So I think they're all decent plays, but with Kyle Busch out there, it's just hard to want to fit any of these guys in. Same with Justin Haley. Starts 11th, been running well this year, been running well these types of tracks, but I just don't see the upside for him really to just dominate this race or get up inside the top 3 or 4. And it's hard to play him with Kyle Busch out there. So Haley's another one I don't want to play. Burton and Annette starting second and first. I'm not playing him. I expect Cindric to get around them very fast, and I just don't see any upside to them at all, especially Annette. Burton's been a little bit faster this year, but still, those two I'm not really interested in. Tommy Joe Martin starting 36 at 7,500. He finally did not wreck in a second Kentucky race, and he had a good race. I don't know. I don't know if wreck's the right word. He didn't have mechanical issues. That's really what seems to happen with Tommy Joe Martins. But he's 7,500, starting 36. 16th best average finish at Texas, but then 27th best at intermediates, 26th at large ovals, and 28th at cookie cutters. So that's not really great. And in the last 5 races, he has an average finish of 25.66. I know he had a good race in the second Kentucky race last week, but I just don't trust those mechanical issues, and he's too expensive. If he was in the 6Ks, that'd be different. I know he starts 36, but it's just not someone I'm just so excited to get to here. I just don't. He's someone you can play if you want to have just high floors with playing Kyle Busch, but just not someone I'm really interested in going to. Next we have Myatt Snider starting 14th, 7,400. He's in the 93 car. I always forget the number. I'm pretty sure it's 93. I think I got it now. So the car's doesn't have a ton of upside. I expect him to finish honestly right around where he started, and at that price tag, you don't want it. Bailey Curry, DraftKings continues to price him up, but look at his last 5 races. Average finish at 26.2, average position at 27.6. So I'm not really excited to play someone who can move me up 4 spots at 7,200, especially when there's spots that far back. Brett Moffitt starting 15th at 7,100, I think is kind of interesting, actually. I think he's very cheap. He has top 10 upside. Average finish of the 14th best average finish at intermediates and large ovals, and the 7th at cookie cutters. So he has shown speed at these types of tracks in the Xfinity Series this year. In the last 5 races, he has an average finish of 11.33 and an average position of 16.66. So I think Moffitt has some kind of upside here. I wouldn't call him a smash play or anything, but these are we're getting into the price range where if you're playing Kyle Busch, you're going to have to play some of these guys. And I think especially compared to the rest of the guys down here, Brett Moffitt at least has upside. I don't know how much upside some of these other drivers really have down here, but Brett Moffitt has top 10, top 8 upside. So I think he's an okay guy to go to. Timmy Hill starts 27th, and I like Timmy Hill when he's in the 30s, but 27 is a little too high for me. He's going to get up 5 or 6 spots. I guess that could end up what you're needing if you're playing Kyle Busch, but I'd rather play Brett Moffitt, who I think has more upside, and I'd rather play Brandon Brown or Ryan Sieg right below him, who I think have more upside as well. Getting into Brandon Brown. Brandon Brown's not a guy I really look at his past stats as much because that car has just been so much faster this year. In the last 5 races, he's had some bad luck, an average finish of 20th and an average position of 20.25. But if you recall, at the Kentucky race, he was running basically top 10 through 12 the whole race, and he got taken out by, was it Chastain? Chastain might have taken out someone else. He got taken out by somebody and ruined his race. But I think he has some upside at 6,700. Again, not my favorite play. I'd rather play Ryan Sieg, to be honest, because I know that car is faster. He has a 12th best average finish at Kentucky, 15th at, Texas, 15th at intermediates, 15th at large ovals, and 16th at cookie cutters. So yeah, Sieg's been decent here, these types of tracks. In the last 5 races, Sieg has an average finish of 14.25 and an average position of 14. So yeah, I mean he has been running great, but Ryan Sieg always has like top 10 upside, and that's another guy that I mean he seems too cheap to me. He should be in the 7K range to me. I mean I don't expect him to like have a great race or anything, but he could get a top 10 and starting 18th with playing Kyle Busch. Those are the kind of guys you need to get to. Josh Williams, 6,400 starting 24th. Guy I really more look at his races this year than anything. An average finish in the last 5 races of 18.75 and an average position of 21.75. So I mean there's a little bit of upside, but just nothing I'm really excited about. Joe Graff Jr. is up next, starting 25th. If you just saw over there, he has an average finish in the last 5 races of 16 and an average position of 21.75. So I do think Joe Graff is kind of interesting. He can get you like a top 15 is hard. He did it at Kentucky. No, he didn't. He had like 17th place at Kentucky. Anyway, he can get it for you, but like it's not something I'm just super excited to get to. I think he's an okay play. Again, you're gonna need these value guys to play Kyle Busch, so I think Graff's an interesting one, but I wouldn't call him like just a lock and play. I still think I'd rather play Ryan Sieg than both Graff and Williams, but I think they're all okay guys that you're gonna need to have. If you want to play Kyle Busch, you need to have probably one of them. Unless you're playing Busch and Cindric, then you're gonna have to get even farther down here. Vinnie Miller, 6,200, starting 34th. All right. These are the kind of guys you're gonna have to play, but Vinnie Miller, man, I mean, he's just been bad this year. He has not been good. I mean, he's just been trash. Average finish of 26 in the last 5 and a 26.6 average position, which I guess is okay. I just like you're gonna have to play Vinnie Miller probably. He starts 34th. He's just got such a high floor, I guess. I mean, I don't know if it's really a high floor, but he has there's not a ton of downside to playing Vinnie Miller. I mean, yeah, he could be trash and finish 29th, but at least he won't kill you. So I think he's okay. Matt Mills, I mean, yeah, I think he was in the optimal in the second Kentucky race last week, but that was the only good race he's had all year, and I just don't want to chase that again. In the last 5 races, he's an average finish of 25.6 and an average position of 25.8. Chad Fincham's in the same boat. I'm just average finish of 24.6, average position of 27.8. Not someone I'm really looking to get to. Both those guys just don't seem like they have really anywhere to go, but 1 or 2 spots. So maybe 4, but still, that's just not what you need. Jeffrey Earnhardt starts 21st. Another guy who I don't look at his past stats because he's nowhere near as good of a car as he used to drive. Average finish of 16.66 and an average position of 22.8 in the last 5 races. He's finally really cheap. And I don't hate him because I know he's actually a good driver, and I think he could finish inside the top 15, which could end up being what you need. So I think Earnhardt's okay. I don't hate him as much this week as I, do some of these other drivers around him, but Earnhardt's fine. Colby Howard starting 35th. I expect to be the chalk. He's been actually pretty good this year. He should get inside. He has top 20 upside every race. He doesn't always get there, but if you recall, if you recall, I didn't really talk about this last race because I didn't know it until about 10 minutes, or the last video for Kentucky, because I didn't know until about 10 minutes before the race started. But Colby Howard said in an interview, because he got wrecked out in the first Kentucky race, he said at the second Kentucky race, and we need to keep our car clean for the Texas race. So he wasn't really pushing it too hard at the second Kentucky race, but now we go to Texas where I expect him to, and he's got an average finish in the last 5 races of 19 and an average position of 20.66. And in the first Kentucky race, he was inside the top 15 when he got wrecked out by Alfredo. And yeah, that was a fun one too. So I think Colby Howard, I expect him to be chalk. Especially if Kyle Busch on his slate, he's going to be so chalky, but I think he's a great play. Stephen Light, I'm fading. He is starting park. Don't play him. Cody Vanderwall's another one. You just don't ever play Cody Vanderwall. Never does well and always seems to wreck. 5,200 Jesse Little is interesting, though. You are going to need some value, and I think he's value just because I think he can hang around where he starts. And, honestly, he can get up in front a little bit. He has an average finish of 14.2 in the last 5 races and an average position of 16.2. So I think Little, at that price tag, especially needing to play Kyle Busch, he's fine. 5,200, if he can get you 17th, 16th place, that's going to be a good guy to have. Kyle Weatherman, I also expect to be chalk at starting 33rd. He's been running so good this year. Out of nowhere, Kyle Weatherman has been running very, very well. 18.25 in the last 5 races average finish and a 21.25 average position. Starting 33rd is really good, and he has top 15 upside. Before the second Kentucky race where he wrecked out in lap 5, he had 4 consecutive top 15s and an 8th place at Kentucky. That's just huge. What a great run for him. I think he's the cheapest I'm really willing to go here. I don't want to pay for any of these other guys. David Starr, Stephen Parsons, B.J. McLeod, Dexter Bean. There's just no really upside for them. I expect Bean to go back and McLeod probably to go back a little bit. But Starr and Parsons should probably hang around their starting positions. They're okay, I guess. If you want to play Starr and Parsons, I think they're fine, but I would rather play Kyle Weatherman and Kobe Howard for sure. So I think those are some good value guys. If you're gonna want to play Kyle Busch, yeah, I'm Little, Weatherman, and Howard are by far my favorite in that 5K range, and I think you're gonna honestly need at least two of those guys. You might be able to get away with only one of them, but I kind of like these 5K guys more than these 6K guys anyway, so I think that's fine, and maybe pay up for someone a little bit more expensive like an Alfredo or a Haley who will be lower owned. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you make sure to leave a like, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want more than just NASCAR, I'm going to be bringing NBA back real soon, so that's going to be fun to keep it up with. And leave a comment, let me know how the video went. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and hope you guys make some money on this race.